we have to take a second to talk about the Mets.
They better stop spending money to try and win baseball games, okay? Because I'm sick of it.
It's very uncouth.
It's actually disgusting.
The Mets luxury tax is larger than the average payroll in Major League Baseball.
And more than like 10 actual teams' payrolls. Like what Steve Cohen will be paying in luxury tax penalties is more than like the entire salary cap of like the Pittsburgh Pirates.
I mean, the payroll for the Mets, it's just unreal. And the contracts and the term, Carlos Correa, basically it seemed like the Giants were trying to do due diligence and saw something on his physical, and then he was like, oh, you want to think this over? Okay.
No.
Not so much. I'm going to go join the Mets. 12 years, $350 million. Brandon Nimmo, 8 years, $162 million. You know, re-signing your guy. They signed Edwin Diaz back as well. Verlander coming from the World Series champions. Only a 2-year deal, but $86.6 million. Kodai Senga, who I guess has been, you know, I don't know anything about Japanese baseball, but has been dominant over there.
Yeah, highly touted Japanese prospect, but prospect in the terms of like usually
he's in his late 20s.
Yes, in the sense like a guy who's like had a full career in Japanese baseball, but like is considered a prospect because he hasn't played in the MLB. And then also Jose Quintana rounding out their rotation. Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm for a team that's usually based on the former ownership group. I mean, you know, and how they've kind of been pre the ownership of Steve Cohen. Like the Mets are usually a pretty risk averse team who does not try to really upgrade their roster.
Also known as a cheap team.
And when I say risk averse, I also mean cheap, frugal. Yeah. So it's kind of gratifying to see this because I'm just excited that like they're genuinely seeming as if they're frustrated that they lost the World Series, that they did not make it that far in the playoffs, and really want to be one of the competitive teams in baseball. When honestly, it's more of an outlier for a team in the MLB to actually want to be competitive.
I mean, that just goes to show that he's a fan to a degree. I mean, look, he's a billionaire. Billionaires shouldn't exist, but when they do exist, I'll be thrilled if they're going to spend a ton of money and give guys contracts who are athletes who, you know.
Yeah, like at least they want to like.
The most ethical way to be a rich person is to be an athlete. And I'm fine with them taking all of his money and playing baseball with it. And
exactly.
The people that are like, oh, this is so. I mean, I respond to David Axelrod, who was like, this is not the Mets I know and love.
Loser!
I said loser mentality, because that's what it is. You want the Mets to be losers if that's the case. You're simping for a billionaire to hold on to his money as opposed to spending it on the baseball team and doing what the fans want. Loser mentality.
Yeah, sorry, man. Sorry, man. Sorry that I'm not stressed out about our team actively trying to be competitive and not sucking ass.
Yeah, I know.
Like, sorry, dude. Like,
yeah, if you go be a fan of another, go to the Diamondbacks and be a fan if you want to.
Or better yet, you know what, Axe? You know, take a leaf out of Jacob deGrom's book. Go down to Arlington, Texas, and root for that sorry team. Root for the Texas Rangers.
Yeah, there we go. Well, and I think that's also what pissed Cohen off as well. Which, you know, it seemed like deGrom was out the door and didn't take his call, and he's like, "All right, you want to leave? We were going to offer you some sort of money." Like maybe they didn't even allow Cohen to counter. And Cohen's like, okay, well, I'm going to spend.
deGrom also made a joke. He's at one of his recent media appearances for when he recently after the Correa signing, he said, maybe I'll have a inconclusive physical as well. Yeah. This is what happens when you take long-term stability over reckless, chaotic spending, Jacob. You don't get to be on a team with these guys.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
I love being the on-paper champs. I can't wait for this team to win like 85 games and lose in the play-in.
Yeah, I mean, don't do that. But it is changing the market and like the landscape of baseball to have an owner like this. I mean, the Yankees used to be the big bads that would spend all the money, and they look like the little brother right now, baby.
Yeah, I mean,
they had the
re-signing,
Judge signing,
which
and
took much longer than I think a lot of people wanted it to, and then getting Carlos Rodon is definitely another good signing for the Yanks. But it seems it's very clear that Cohen is comfortable being aggressive and comfortable making it clear that he will do what it takes to get the best players on the roster to the best of his abilities, and let the chips fall where they may from that point.
And in a sport where there's no salary cap, there is a luxury tax, but there's no salary cap. And in a sport where your draft picks are not necessarily as valuable as it would be in, say, the NFL, having an aggressive owner is beneficial because that's what the sport requires. In the NFL, you have David Tepper, who's been aggressive, and that's not worked out for the Carolina
No.
Panthers because there's a salary cap, because when you're trading draft picks for Sam Darnold or Baker Mayfield, who's no longer on the roster, it's like those are very valuable compared to Major League Baseball, where there are a million rounds and it's a bit more of a crapshoot than it would be, in a long developmental process for some of these guys before they make it to the major leagues. So very exciting time to be a Mets fan. We just had to talk about that
100%,
briefly.
yeah.